back to the Nailing History podcast. Happy 2025.
We are so pumped to have you back, and we are
Is that the new word? Is that the new word this year?
New word, new me. You know how we got to be? Pumped to be back. Hey, fans, we miss you. That's all we can say. That's all I can say. Matt, how's your 2025 been so far?
It's been 3 weeks since we've had an episode, at least.
So your 2025's been terrible.
Which I'm told in internet years is an eternity. So we've gone into the realm of irrelevance on the internet by missing 3 weeks for an episode. I didn't know if you knew that, John.
Yeah. Well, I know there's other podcasters we've been following that have gone longer than 3 weeks. So I think it's normal though, especially at the end of the year. I know some podcasts I listen to, they'll take 2-3 weeks off for the holidays. Everyone knows you got time with family and you got to get your house in order. You got to, meet all those end of year kind of obligations. But I think we're fine. The real fans miss us.
How was your holiday?
Holiday was good. The holiday season was good. Christmas was very nice. It was cool. I had 2 weeks working from home.
Did you do the 7 fishes?
Job. We did not do 7 fishes. We did about 4, 5.
It's not very Italian of you.
No, I know, but we spent it with my fiance's sister.
I thought this year in particular,
Virginia.
I think this year in particular, you may have been more interested in following the Italian traditions than most years. So I find it interesting you didn't do the 7 fishes.
A big event, as our fans know. I think we had previously addressed it before. I'd acquired my Italian citizenship by descent back in June. All that stuff finally went through. And then I had to just play the waiting game in order to go and get my first Italian passport. I had to wait however long, 6 months. And yeah, we made a day out in town, December 23rd. My fellow podcast co-host decided to join me along with my mother, sister, and fiance into Philadelphia, where
I get invited to so little now that anything I get invited to, I figure I might as well take advantage of it. Otherwise I wouldn't do anything except this podcast.
Well, you were ready for it. You accepted the offer and the invitation, and I was very grateful for that. And I was even more grateful for a very charming and thoughtful present that Matt decided to get me before our travels into the city. Matt, maybe you can explain to our fans what you went ahead and got me. I think
you go ahead. Great. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Matt, to commemorate the event and the festivity of me going for my passport, Matt felt it appropriate to get me a T-shirt, which he basically forced me to wear to my passport appointment, which said Italian, and it had a picture of a flag underneath that, from my head to my meatballs.
Even just saying it makes me laugh.
And
don't forget there was a very random space between the I and the T in Italian too. Don't forget that.
Cannot forget that. The shirt, I own the shirt now. I will not forget it.
Have you worn it since?
Done. Matt wanted to get himself a shirt, so I guess we were matching, which said "surrounded by stunads" with the finger gesture, the hand gesture, the typical Italian hand gesture.
Tommy DeVito hand gesture.
Tommy DeVito, most recently done by Baker Mayfield after scoring a touchdown, mimicking the crowd or sticking it to the crowd.
It was a good shirt.
It was a good shirt. We can maybe put a poll out to our fans: which shirt's nice, funnier, more insulting? Just what would you rather have in your wardrobe? But yeah, we had a really fun day out. So had that appointment in the morning, and then we immediately after that we just went across the street to a place called La Scala Fire. Had some pizza and some long hots. Got to get some long hots in you when you're in Philadelphia. What they
If I were
are
to give a review of the
for
restaurant,
anyone who doesn't know what a long hot.
If I were to give a review of this restaurant, it is that we ordered the Italian egg rolls and we got the cheesesteak egg rolls. And me and John, being the polite Catholics that we are, didn't say anything.
Polite cat, yeah. Getting ready. We could have been like, we were really looking forward to it though. So fans, these egg rolls. So they were Italian style egg rolls. So for any of our fans who've ever been into Philly, you got a place called DeNick's. You get an Italian pulled pork sub, which has broccoli rabe, sharp provolone cheese, and Italian pulled pork. And so these were going to be in long hots, and they were going to be baked into an egg roll. And we saw that. We got to get it. No questions asked. And we ordered it. It was like early lunch hour. And then we were one of the first ones there. And then it just turned into a madhouse half an hour later. And I think we just felt bad. We didn't want to send it back.
Fans, I just want to bring you into my world right now as we're going through this episode. But right before we were on this episode, right before we started recording, John, I had put an outline together, and this is kind of what we've been going off of so far. We're on item 1 of like 13. But John, I'm ready to get started. I'm getting excited. And then John just decides to say, hey, why don't we put timestamps on all of these items? Because I don't want to be talking about all this stuff for very long. And then, by the time we get into the meat of the episode, I'm spent and I can't contribute to the episode. So he goes through, he spends 30 minutes that we probably could have just been doing podcasting. He spends this time to put these approximate timestamps of all of these episodes. And then when it comes time to record this episode, John decides to just go off on all these tangents about where we ate lunch, what we ordered. I don't know. Very strange.
It's
strange behavior. Strange behavior from a co-host. That's all I got to say.
We're in the weeds, but long story short, it was a great day out. It was a lot of fun. I got my passport. I only had 5 fish for the Feast of the 7 Fishes this year. I had a nice Christmas. How was yours?
It was fine.
Good. Yeah.
What else did you do over there? I got some nice nailing history swag for Christmas. I got coasters. I got coasters. I got notepads. I got socks. I got. Is that it?
You got some books.
And I got some history books that may come in handy in the future. Yep. My family's very supportive of the podcast.
That's good. That's good. My family's just asking me now, how can they actually communicate with us on the podcast? So that's good. That's good.
Our AI generated show logo actually kind of came out pretty good on this swag.
Do we own the rights to that? Or do you own the rights to that? How does that work?
I don't know. Does anybody own the rights to anything?
Yes. Says like 250 years of American commerce law. I don't know.
And I got this really sweet painting for Christmas that I'm excited about. Of Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn,
yeah. Are you a big fan of hers?
I think she's hot. In a 1930s way.
30s? Are you talking about Katharine Hepburn?
No,
Breakfast at Tiffany's came out. Breakfast at Tiffany's came out in 1961.
Oh, in the 60s kind of way, she's hot.
Fair enough.
I like her. She's cool. Do you like her?
She looks like a sassy kind of gal.
Yeah, she seems like she'd really, insult me in a nice way.
Probably step
You know
on
what I
your
mean?
groin a couple times if you asked.
Yeah. I think so. That's all. That's a good recap. Let's. How are we doing on our time, John?
We're cruising here.
What
We
were
are
we supposed to be at? What was your
We're
master
already
plan?
supposed to be on bullet point 7. But yeah, no, like I guess I had a nice holiday, but I think the highlight of like call it the holiday season, which I guess I would include this in, was I actually had a friend of mine. So some of our fans know too, that I lived in Australia for about 6 years, and my last year there, I lived with a family uh, for a full year, and we kind of became really close. They're probably going to hopefully be at my wedding. If you're listening, looking forward to your RSVP. But yeah, for like one of the son that I was living with there, he had a chance to come to the U.S. for a couple weeks and spent most of that time up in New York City. And yeah, he just reached out. We were able to connect, and got him on a bus. He came down to Baltimore, picked him up, and he was only here for like less than 36 hours. So we had a Saturday that we went to DC, and I just kind of took him all around to all the sights and sounds, and that was a couple weeks ago now. And yeah, that was really fun. It was really cool to reconnect and see him, and have a young. I think he's 17. Have a young, impressionable mind that I could spit historical knowledge on. That was kind of cool, and I think he appreciated it. So he said. Apparently, it was the highlight of his trip.
Did you tell him about our podcast?
I think I mentioned it to him. Certainly mentioned it to his mother.
I would have been. Did you drive there?
No, we drove to the DC Metro, and then we took the train in. And we got right off at the Smithsonian Institute.
So then you had a fun time. You had a fun time in DC. You take the train back. You get in the car. You don't think to say like, "Oh, hey, why don't we listen to an episode of my history podcast?"
I wasn't sure. I mean, he said after the fact that it was his highlight, but we went into the Smithsonian Museum of American History, and we were there for a little bit. We did an exhibit on like the history of like transportation in America. Walked around that for a while.
Pete Buttigieg there?
I wish there was a cardboard cutout. So we were we did that for a while, and then like we wanted to go up to so we did that, and then we went up to the Star Spangled Banner. So we saw the flag that was the inspiration for our national anthem, and that was pretty cool. And then he was like, "I want to see that." I'm like, "So do I." And so no pictures were allowed. Unfortunately, they thought it would corrode the. They thought a picture from a cell phone with no flash on would corrode the flag. Like
just like Washington's tent.
Just no pictures allowed. I was a fly
Probably
on the
because
wall.
It's not actually the flag. Just saying.
Sorry.
Probably because it's not actually that flag.
I think it is. It is the flag.
Mm. Yeah,
Why
we
don't you
landed on
think
the
it's
moon.
not?
It's all right. Keep going.
It was a box. It was also a square flag. It's not rectangle like the flag we see now. And that was cool. I think he really appreciated that. And then we were going to go upstairs to the third floor and kind of do like more military history. They had a whole exhibit on military history, opening up with the French and Indian War, 7 Years War, as our fans know, is known by another name. And we got going on there talking about Fort Necessity, General Braddock, and how Washington started the war. So we're just about getting into it. We're right about to walk up into the Boston Massacre stuff, and as we're about to declare independence.
Oh boy!
And he turns to me and he's like, "Hey, can we go get something to eat? I'm hungry." So I was like, "All right, I think he got enough history for the day on this." And then we were like, "Let's just go and we'll just walk around. We'll just go walk around. We got to go. We got plenty to see here." And we just ended up just cruising around the National Mall. We just walked around the White House, which was packed. And with all the commotion of the inauguration coming up, they were setting up for that. So there was Secret Service everywhere. Couldn't really get to where we could get a good picture in front of the White House, but we made it work. And so, yeah, we walked around the White House, hit up the National Monument, hit up the Washington Monument, went to the Jefferson Monument. I would say, yeah, my favorite part did Lincoln Monument. Obviously, our fans know that was not my favorite. George Mason Monument was cool. It was subtle. It was very subtle. I like that one.
Did you see the Korean War Monument
We
Memorial?
did see the Korean War Memorial, yeah. That was cool. We literally hit every single memorial, and then when we came back, we walked all
FDR's memorial.
What? I didn't know FDR's was as big as it was. I've walked past FDR's before, but I obviously missed like the meat of it, the meat and potatoes of the. Like, I just remember walking by one time past like a wall that said like the FDR Memorial. I'm like, that looks lame. But this time I actually went in, and it was literally every 4 years of his presidency are documented with different like statues and stuff. So you have like the first 4 years of the Great Depression, and you have these guys standing in line like at like a soup kitchen, a la.
Were they filling out forms?
For the most part, a la Allentown, precursor to the Allentown of future.
Do you think that's what? Do you think that maybe that is what influenced Billy Joel to write that song?
I think his influence was the Jobs leaving Allentown in the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm kidding.
So
you sent me a picture of that. You had the old Aussie bloke sitting waiting in line with the rest of them. Pretty funny.
Right. It was a good picture.
I guess which may have been fitting if he was as hungry as you said he was.
Well, he wasn't that hungry at that point. We'd already eaten.
Maybe you should have given him a little. Oh, you think you're hungry now?
Well, the Great Depression hit Australia too. I mean, I think it was a world depression. So
you should have taken the opportunity to teach him about the Smoot-Hawley Act.
Huh?
You should have taken the opportunity to teach him about the Smoot-Hawley Act.
Yep. I was talking his ear off a lot. We did a lot of walking.
I'm hungry. Well, you know who was really hungry? Americans during the Great Depression. And you know what made that even worse? Herbert Hoover and the Smoot-Hawley Act. Let me explain to you what happened.
Tariffs.
He thought the only way to get out of the Great Depression was to increase the tariffs. And he's like, what?
No, he was engaged. He liked it. I think I got a picture of him at every memorial, and we basically did all of Lincoln, and then we walked the length to the nation's capital. We walked to the Capitol building. That was certainly a highlight of my time away, what I've been doing the past 3 weeks since our last episode.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, fan mail. Let's get to our fan mail now. Let's just read. We got a couple fan mails, and we'll read them in reverse chronological order. January 2nd, this is him writing. Excellent year, gentlemen. I enjoyed every episode, although some were more entertaining than others. I would like to throw my hat in the ring for this all expenses paid field trip contest. Now, break. John, did we say all expenses, or did we say 50%?
I think it was half off. Yeah, I think it was 50%.
Yeah, I don't know what you're trying to get at, Dick Pepperfield, but we'll look into it. Back to the message. This is very generous of the podcast to offer this once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I simply cannot turn it down. If possible, I would like to John do the tour in character as Al Pacino, as he is one of my favorite actors, and John's impression is one of the best I've heard. I'm sorry I didn't send anything in for my favorite moments of the year for the last episode, but I was visiting Italy, trying to learn more about my heritage. I felt this was necessary after John publicly shamed me about my lack of Italian knowledge on our last call. As for future episodes on the pod, I'd like to hear more movie reviews, but I'd like them to be good movies. Finally, I will corroborate John's story about my cover of Bob Seger at our school talent show. I'm simply shocked that at his recall here, somehow he can't remember the DC sniper attacks, yet he can remember a first grade talent show set. Stay classy, Dick Pepperfield. There's a lot to unpack there.
A lot going on. Wow.
I would say, first off, okay, so first about the the field trip. We'll figure that out.
It's going to go to. We're going to Norristown, basically. If it's going to be 50% off, we're going to do a historical field trip to Norristown.
I was thinking, why don't we go to we can take Dick to the Chester County History Museum, kind of close to where I believe near where he currently resides, and that could be fun.
We could pick him up, swing by, pick him up. He'll get, VIP.
We'll get him in 50% off entrance to the museum. Then we'll pay for half of his meal at Uno Pizzeria and Grill.
So sign up today, Dick Pepperfield. If anyone else wants to join,
we'll reach out separately. We'll reach out to you separately to go over the details.
And if anyone else wants to join, exclusions apply. Obviously, you got to find, if you get yourself to Norristown,
Westchester,
within the vicinity of anywhere within the vicinity.
Take the train. If you can take the Norristown line in, and we can pick you up at the Norristown Transportation Center. That's all you need to get to. Either get to where we're going, or Norristown Transportation Center is the farthest we will drive. So yeah, your Al Pacino is his favorite. Movie reviews. We do have a couple lined up. We've seen a couple. One in particular, not sure if we're going to be able to get access to it. But there is an Italian film about the life of Benito Mussolini that we're very interested in seeing, and we will do a movie review if we can get access to that.
Apparently, it's quite the commotion too. People,
really?
Set. Yeah, really? I've got some Italian coworkers who were like, "Yeah, it's a little touchy subject in Italy right now
because of the wee."
Yep.
Did you ask them?
Why do we see it? Why can never unsee that? No, just like the current political stuff happening in the world. And they're like, it's just.
Hey, what do they say about your past? If you forget it, you're doomed to repeat it. Isn't that what they say, or something like that?
That's what they say.
So,
but Mark Twain also says history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
So we got a couple movies on there. We will keep you guys in the loop on that. But I do want to say, John, this talent show where this individual sang Pete Seeger, "Good Old Time Rock and Roll," that was in first grade.
I guess I don't remember the exact time. It was in grade school.
I was thinking we were talking like 7th, 8th grade.
No.
Because wasn't it the same year that you did Big Pimpin' by Jay-Z, or was it a different talent show?
That's when I did that. That wasn't at a talent show. That was at a grade school dance. My competition just did All the Small Things by Blink-182. I think a little bit easier to pull off if you have no rapping skills, which I unfortunately
I could have maybe hooked you up with some costume ideas using blackface to get you through that one.
I did have the dollar bills. I do remember that much. I was fanning some money around for 5 minutes straight and not saying anything else.
I can't believe you can remember that. If that was really first grade, I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. And
I remember that. And another one was people in my school did, I think that was first. Maybe that was first grade. Somebody did Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba.
That wouldn't have been first grade.
1998.
Yeah, that would have been like 3rd grade.
So maybe it was 3rd grade. Yeah.
Did you have that album, Chumbawamba?
No, but I believe our fan Mark C did, and I think that's how I heard it.
I had it too. And there was a song on there that was, as someone who went to Catholic school, being like 10 years old, there was a song called not to get off topic. Hold on, I got it.
I'm curious.
Yeah, hold on. I gotta find these lyrics. What was that album called?
Tub Thumper, wasn't it?
That was the song.
No, the album was Tub Thumper. The song was called Tub Thumping.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, it was.
Oh man, you're right. Wow, that's okay.
Very creative.
There was a song called "Mary Mary." That's it, and the song starts off with like a really crazy, dark, British themed person reciting the Hail Mary prayer.
Okay.
And then it like gets into like no virgin. Then like the song comes in and it's kind of like an angry British song, right? And it's like, no virgin me, for I have sinned. I sold my soul for sex and gin. Go call the priest, all meek and mild, and tell them Mary is no more a child. So like, I mean, it was pretty earth shattering, but I do remember I did like that was my second favorite song on that album. It was a pretty catchy tune.
Apparently, Donald Trump he ticked them off. Apparently, he tried using tub thumping during the 2016 presidential campaign, and they were not happy with him. They denied him the right to use it. Yeah,
I would have used
guess
Mary.
A band member said that, quote, there have been many, many examples of right-wing populist leaders using ostensibly left-wing music to hoodwink their audiences into some kind of hypnotic self-delusion that they are, quote, of the people, end quote.
That's what, when I think of the song Tub Thumping, I think of the people for sure. All right, let's get moving from our good friend to the show and contributor to the show. Emily M asks, these are supposed to be anonymous, but I think she'd be happy for me to say her name. Question for the host: who would you pardon if you were president? Now, John, I gave you a little bit of time. I didn't want to. I know it's a tough question to get, thrown on you in the spur of the moment type thing. So, did you have a time to think about it, and do you have an answer?
Yes, I do.
You're very excited.
Everyone from Cops. Anyone who's been arrested on the show Cops. It's like, we got our benefit. It's entertainment. Yeah, they were committing a crime, but there's only a show of cops. Only have the show because people like seeing other people get arrested.
Good answer. That's a very good answer.
It's like, you've done your time. You're now like, you're forever that guy in a trailer park somewhere who was running from the cops.
Yeah.
Getting tackled and then having to explain yourself on camera.
Maybe had some drugs up your butt.
Most of them were drug offenses, it seems like. A lot of them were like petty gun crimes, which it's like illegal, and like maybe they should have been arrested. But like, if you're filming it and someone's making money off of you, it's like, already you've done the time. The film's footage isn't going anywhere. I'm still watching it. My fiance, she'll just put it on. She just needs to, relax. She'll just throw on Cops or Love After Lockup or one of these crazy like police shows.
Very good answer. I do want to add one other person to this. How about the guy who stabbed Joey Greco on that episode of Cheaters?
Ooh,
that's a good one. That's a good pardon.
Now, full disclaimer, I'm not saying that pardoning of these individuals from the show Cops is necessarily what the founding fathers would have intended to use.
Well, my concern would be, I don't think any of these people, and to get back to what a pardon actually is, I don't think any of these people on Cops are being arrested by local troopers for federal offenses, right?
Yeah.
So as president, you wouldn't necessarily have the power to pardon them.
Maybe as a governor of a state.
Right. The question was, if you were president. I don't want to get in the weeds, but I'm just saying.
That's true, and I appreciate
listening. If Emily M's listening, and she's going to probably be saying that, like, well, wait a second.
And obviously, I can't wipe the state if the state still has an offense against them. That's got to hold. Yeah, no, it's true.
So I'll just go quick with mine. I have a little bit of a list. Wesley Snipes and Mike the Situation, both tax evasion victims. I don't know who's necessarily the victim in a tax evasion case, but I think
The American
if you
people,
pay,
obviously.
I think if you pay your taxes back, or you at least say you're sorry, you should be able to get pardoned for cheating your taxes.
Maybe if they
Hey,
paid their
worth a
taxes,
shot. I would pardon Chris Harrison, the host of the Bachelor, or the creator and host of the Bachelor series. He got into a little bit of hot water back in like 2018, 2019 over a trying to defend a woman for going to antebellum parties down in the South. I don't know if you remember this, John. And he got canceled. They took his show away from him, and he went on he got himself into a little bit of a situation that he shouldn't have been in, taking heat for somebody else's actions, which I did ultimately realize. Now I never knew this, but the woman that he was talking about on the show, this is even crazier to me. The woman that he was talking about on the show who went to antebellum parties, his defense to her was, well, what was okay in 2018 may not be okay in 2020 anymore, or whatever, or what's not okay in 2020. The woke police. He started saying all these really bad.
But again, he wasn't charged with a crime. Just like the ostracization of it.
I would come out as president and say, let's leave this guy alone.
Okay.
If that counts as a pardon, if that doesn't count as a pardon, sue me. All right.
Okay.
So that kind of leads us into how are we doing on time, John?
We're great.
Where are we supposed to be?
We're catching up. We're making up time. We're making up for
We
it.
had some serious news, some serious impacting news about friend of the show, would you say? I mean, not a friend of the show.
Not a friend, but certainly a soon-to-be a very big personality, overnight sensation, you might say, for the sake of the Nailing History podcast. Nuts. Yeah.
I will say that I don't know if any of our fans made it this far into our pardon episode, because when I have mentioned this person in conversation, it gets no attention. And everyone's like, who is that? So here it is. December 29th, 2024. President Jimmy Carter passed away at 100 years old. Now, that's sad. He was not in great shape at all. I mean,
been
for
in hospice
long,
for
long time.
2 years, yeah.
I mean, he was basically a vegetable. I like to think you make it to 100. I mean, really, what else do you want out of life? Good for him. He had a long life. Happy for him. Seemed like an okay guy. Habitat for Humanity, whatever. But if a lot of people know, what people remember from our episode, very unknown fact about him, in the 70s, or no, right before Jimmy Carter left office, he pardoned a fellow named Peter Yarrow of the famous for the group Peter, Paul, and Mary for some sexual. What do you want to? How's the most appropriate way to say it?
Sexual crime against a minor. What it was.
Can you say that out? Can you say that today? Anyway, first pardon.
I don't know.
First pardon against the first pardon for only pardon for a sexual crime. Whatever. Blah blah. We won't get into it. If you want to, go back to the episode. I know it was a little boring. Fast forward to like the last quarter of the episode. I think is when we get into it. But anyway, funny thing, Jimmy Carter's dead. We know about this Peter thing. John and I have kind of always been like bringing it up, just like I've done Photoshop of me on Peter Yarrow's face, John on the other guy. Like we've done a lot of Photoshop. It's kind of been like a thing that we joke around about as far as like how ridiculous this whole thing is. And so, like I said, my birthday is around the time. My birthday's on January 9th. Jimmy Carter was to be buried on January 9th. I'm celebrating my birthday with my family. My dad says, not a listener of the show, mind you. My dad says, hey, Jimmy Carter is going to be buried tomorrow, right? I'm like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, F that dude, though. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, he wasn't. And then my dad's like, I always thought he was a pretty nice guy. My dad thought of Jimmy Carter has always been, he was too nice to be a good president.
I think that's kind of an image he projected.
Yeah. Which maybe it's true. You know, people make mistakes or whatever. But I said to him, like,
too.
So I said to him, like, yeah, you ever hear of You ever hear of how he pardoned Peter Yarrow for diddling a 14-year-old back in the 60s?
Certainly can't say that. If you can't see crime against for sexual crime against a minor, I don't think diddling a 14-year-old in the 60s.
Well, that's what happened.
I know that's what happened.
I guess he got diddled by the 14-year-old, I believe was the crime. Regardless, forced diddling by a 14-year-old, I think is the proper terminology.
By a 14, forced diddling on a 14. Okay, anyway.
No, forced diddling by a 14-year-old. Wait, yeah. Anyway, right?
Okay.
He forced the 14-year-old to diddle him.
There's no way
right?
This is going on.
So, anyway, I told my dad that. He said, didn't he just die? I'm like, no, you must be, because no one heard about this, right? So, turns out the day before we were talking about this, January 7th, 2025, Peter Yarrow died of some kind of cancer, which is just like, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. John never said anything to me about it. I don't think John had heard about it. I sent him the article right away. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this happened. There's got to be some relation.
Spooky. And Matt put on his sleuthing hat, and he has a pretty good inkling as to what might be happening if any of our fans believe in the not paranormal, the afterlife.
Well, so I think this is the thing. Well, first of all, no one talked about this. No one talked when Jimmy Carter died. I found one person on Twitter, some random account on Twitter that said he pardoned Peter Yarrow. What a jerk. Basically, when Jimmy Carter died, I found him, posted that. I replied to him and said, hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Didn't hear anything back. And neither here nor there. We have a blue check mark. I thought that would have been, whatever. But they didn't talk about it then. They didn't talk about it after Peter Yarrow died, which how could nobody come up with this connection? Not like, and I'm not, I'm just, it's shocking to me that like this happened, they happened right next to each other, and not one person in the media, not one person out there could have just said, wow, look what happened.
Like conspiracy theorists, where are the conspiracy? I don't expect the mainstream media to say like, "Oh, is there a connection between their two deaths?" But I would think somewhere
but even not even to say like a connection, just be like, "That's crazy."
That they died within a week of one another.
Yeah, you don't think that's crazy?
I mean, again, if what you think could have happened in the afterworld, which we'll get into, if you think that's a thing, well then yeah, that could be crazy. But just the fact that they died, if he was suffering from cancer for a while now, maybe he was only staying alive long enough. Maybe he's like, I gotta outlive Jimmy Carter, so Jimmy Carter,
that he keeps his mouth shut,
goes through the pearly gates, and I could still sneak in after him. I think that was the play. I think Yarrow was like, somebody told Yarrow, who was also on his deathbed, like, hey.
So he was worried about dying first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the rules of the engagement with St. Peter up at the pearly gates of heaven for any of our Catholic listeners out there or non-Catholic listeners. First of all, Peter Yarrow was a Jewish man, so I don't think he necessarily would believe in heaven in the same way as...
According to Reddit, a quick search would tell you that Jewish people do not go to heaven.
They meet Mel Brooks instead, apparently. Anyway, we'll leave it to our fans to dig down the internet rabbit hole for that Reddit post.
There was a Reddit post when we were looking this up, and it was like, I always like to think that it would be funny if some Jewish person died and then Jesus shows up on their deathbed and says, who did you expect to find? Mel Brooks? Like, wow, that's cool. So
I think it was weird.
That's an interesting thought, John. I think that's probably what happened. Now, my thought was maybe mine was a little bit more vengeful on the side of St. Peter. I had envisioned Jimmy Carter dies. He gets up to the pearly gates. He says, Peter's up to him. He's like, all right, let's see what you did, Jimmy. President of the United States. Let's see what was up. Nothing that bad. It seems okay.
Built some houses.
We'll let you in. Yeah, Habitat for Humanity. But then Peter or Jimmy Carter says, yeah, well, something's always kind of been on my mind that I kind of messed up here. St. Peter's like, well, what do you mean? I don't see anything here. He says, well, that pardon for Peter Yarrow at the end of my presidency, kind of not the best thing. And St. Peter's like, well, what pardon? Jimmy Carter has to explain it to him. He's like, I was paying attention to the Iranian hostage crisis just like everybody else. I must have missed this. You did what? You let him do what? I got to get him up here. Boom. Gets Peter Yarrow up there to explain stuff to himself.
My question to you is, so they're hypothetical. So Jimmy Carter dies December 29th. He's basically just waiting online. He's just standing outside of the gates like he's in Allentown or something. He's waiting in line.
They call that purgatory, John.
Purgatory. No, well, if he's at the gates, he's not down in purgatory yet. He hasn't kicked down to purgatory yet. He's on hold with St. Peter at the gates.
Is that what happens?
That's what I'm saying is happening.
Okay.
He's explaining himself. He's not in purgatory explaining to St. Peter. He's up at the gates, and then the decision's made by St. Peter. It's like, all right, you got to go wait in purgatory or you're allowed in. That's where they're at. They're in this like.
Is that how it works?
That's how I'm saying how it works. I don't.
Okay.
I know. I think Roman Catholics are the only one that believe in purgatory, first of all. But anyway.
Some people think that our lives now are purgatory. Anyway, keep going.
Anyway, yeah. So I'm thinking, all right, Jimmy Carter goes up there. He explains that whole story, which you just went through. And then, okay, he's just like waiting, like, checking his clock, checking his watch, like waiting for what's going on. Yarrow dies. Yeah, St. Peter brings up Yarrow. They have this whole back and forth. My question to you is, who does he let in? So they're both up there talking to him. Do either of them go into heaven? Do they both go to purgatory? Do they both go to hell? Do they just do rock, paper, scissors to decide? Does St. Peter pull the old, I got space for one of you. I think I'm disappointed in both of you. And one of you is Jewish, and the other one's definitely a Protestant. So
I'm thinking St. Peter makes them share a room together. Bunk beds. For the rest of eternity. Jimmy Carter has to eternity. Jimmy Carter has to listen to Peter Yarrow sing Puff the Magic Dragon constantly for the rest of his life. And Peter Yarrow has to sing it.
Eternal
life. That's their
well, where's Yarrow going? They're in this whole thing. He got pardoned by a president, but is he going to get pardoned by the big man upstairs?
He's sharing a room with Jimmy Carter. I already said that.
Interesting. Well,
so that's all. That's some current events that I thought played a pretty significant role in just not a significant role, but was very heavily involved in the nailing history lore, as you could say.
Yeah, it's baffling that nobody said anything. One about Yarrow's death and two about the pardoning, except that one guy.
Like, I mean, I thought really when Carter died, I'm like, yeah, why would they bring it up? But then the fact that Peter Yarrow died 7 days later and there was no that's funny to think about.
No, even just somebody who was doing it to score political brownie points, like some Republican, someone somewhere, just to throw shade at a Democrat, just for the sake of
a
30-second soundbite. Yeah. Do we need to come up with a top 50 list of current event things, and then by the end of the year we read it back and we're like, hey, remember when that was the biggest thing on the news? And then within days, it was we're only 2 weeks into the year. And
that could be your contribution to the show. Do what you want. There you go. That could be your job.
Okay.
All right, let's get into it. That was pretty much, I just wanted, the main reason to do an episode was to kind of get through what we just got through. So I'm happy we got through that, but we would be remiss if we did not include some history talk here. So John kind of alluded to it before when he talked about his trip down to DC, but we got a big old event happening. By the time this episode comes out, it will have already been passed. I think January 21st, Tuesday, is Donald Trump's the date of Donald Trump's inauguration. Now, the fact that this is coming out after the fact, I can only assume that everything went off without a hitch.
It's not the 21st, by the way.
What is it?
It's Monday, January 20th.
Oh, really? I thought it was Tuesday.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It is the 20th. Whatever. I only assume that everything went off without a hitch. If that's not the case and things went in crazy, we'll cover it in the next episode.
Well, I already have some news here. Apparently, the Trump inauguration is going to be moved indoors.
Oh yeah, I already got that.
Due to the cold.
Lame.
Dangerously cold temperatures.
Yeah, dangerous. Yeah. I don't want a William Henry Harrison situation.
No, we don't want that.
But just going through, we were kind of talking about looking at inaugurations in history, other inaugurations in history, and what to talk about. And you just came across one that I didn't know about it. Andrew Jackson back in 1829, after he won the election of 1828 against John Quincy Adams. His inauguration is known as a raucous one. Is that how you say that word? Very rowdy, and just found it interesting, the situation there.
Yeah, no, I had heard about it before from like a History Channel, but like years ago, nothing more than just I know it was a big party. It wasn't all this pageantry.
So to put it into context, what's going on, John, you can fill in. You might know a little bit more than me, but the election of 1828 was a fairly contentious election to begin with. It was a rematch. Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams went at it the year before, or the election before in 1824, where Jackson won the popular vote and he had the most electoral votes, I believe, but didn't have the majority. So it went to the House of Representatives to decide who became president. And what happened was, John Quincy Adams was second place, and Henry Clay, worked his magic to get John Quincy Adams to win the House over and get elected president. And Andrew Jackson, ever since then, always said how Henry Clay was a corruption. Henry Clay pulled all these strings to get his buddy in there because they were the tariff boys, and they wanted tariffs.
Literally blamed him for the death of his wife. Him and other people that was leading up to this 1828 election. So that happened. Andrew Jackson was saying that the rich and the elite are taking over the country and that the common man's not being represented. That was what he ran on. Mm-hmm. But there was the election was very contentious. There was a situation where Jackson's wife, people said that Jackson married his wife, or Jackson and his wife got married before his wife's divorce was finalized. And that was very scandalous at the time. And it was like tabloids of the day and all this stuff. She was just run through the ringer with the gossip of the day, which Andrew Jackson, contributes to her death. I don't know what she died from, but just a general, I think illness. I don't know. I'm sure there was something. Yeah, exactly what? I'm not sure. But she was basically being accused of bigamy, which back then was a big deal. We were a far more moral society,
So that's just the background. So it was, you think about today, and, I think a lot of people, I think it's just the more and more we've gone through the time and gone through past things in America, people think that this is the craziest time the world has ever seen or that America's ever seen, but it's just not the case. It's this kind of stuff's been going on forever.
I'd say it was even more acute at times. And
it just
the 1824, 1828 elections are
this election seemed crazy.
Part of that.
So all this stuff leading up to it with Henry Clay, stealing the election from Andrew Jackson, very common phrase that you hear these days, is the attitude going on. And since Andrew Jackson then won this 1828 election, there was this feeling that Andrew Jackson was the first president to represent the common man. That was contributed also to the fact that several states for this election had relaxed the laws that previously allowed only property owners to vote. So there was much more common man representation in this election. So when he wins, he was a populist president. He's probably the first populist president that you would consider. There's a Jacksonian era that they talk about in America. like the people, the common people, the farmers of the country, the common man felt represented for the first time in a long time, I would say.
I'd say Thomas Jefferson had shades of it, but even he was not that. I don't think he played as much as Jackson did to the common man.
I feel like they might have liked him, but he was also
he was in like a natural aristocracy.
That's what I'm saying. He was an aristocratic person.
Right.
So 30,000. So then this inauguration was happening March 4th, 1829. The reason for the change from March 4th to January 20th, do you know this reason, John? Well, the reason why it was March 4th, it was in March, was just because of logistics of getting the president-elect to the White House. Like back then, it was hard to get places. The logistics of all that stuff and everything. So it wasn't until the what amendment was that? The 20th Amendment? The 20th Amendment passed in 1933, changed it from March to January. The reason to change it, one, with modern advances in communication and transportation, they were able to obviously get to the White House and get elected quicker. But also the big thing was that what do they call that? Lame duck Congress, where in between elections, when there's a lot of people in Congress who got voted out or whatever, nothing's happening. Right. And to have that time from November to March is pretty crazy. So they shortened it to January. And that happened in 1933. So thinking this, it's March, springtime, it's getting warm now. Everybody's feeling represented in the country. The mood in DC must have been electric at the time, and got a lot of people showing up. 30,000 people showed up for this inauguration, which was a lot at the time. I think the current record holder is Obama at 1.8 million people. Attended Barack Obama's inauguration. I don't know if that's been broken. Yeah, 1.8 million. So 30,000 people versus 1.8 million. That's pretty, but a lot of people still. And people were pumped to see Jackson. These people came to see him. They were excited. He gave his speech. He was sworn into office, gave a speech, and as soon as he gave a speech, the crowd broke through the barriers and ran up the Capitol steps to try to shake his hand. I mean, imagine that happening now. They'd be shot on sight.
Oh, man. I think Trump would shake people's hands. That's the thing. He would.
He would probably embrace it a little bit, maybe. But it'd be scary. So that happened. Jackson rode his horse back to the White House. He was able to escape this crowd, rode his horse back to the White House, but the crowd followed him because in the tradition at this time, the White House was open to the public on Inauguration Day. So you could come in and like congratulate the president or whatever, which I guess up until this point wasn't a huge deal because there wasn't this like populist feeling of like I feel like it was a very heightened, like only the high society would attend the inaugurations and only the high society would probably even think that they were welcome in the White House. But with Jackson, how he ran on the representing the common man, the everyman felt as though they were welcome into the White House. So they all followed him there and ran in, to the point where they were breaking chairs, breaking china, all this. And there's a painting. I sent it to John, and it represents apparently what actually happened. It was so bad that Jackson actually got pinned up against the wall of the dining area, wherever they were. And he couldn't even move. He ended up having to escape out a window to get to a hotel.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything here?
No. Justice of the Supreme Court Joseph Story said, quote, "I never saw such a mixture. The reign of King Mob seemed triumphant." So they were there before Jackson even showed up on his white horse. He was literally coming down on his horse from the Capitol. They were already there. They were already in the White House.
I wonder if he thought what did I do?
It's like I got elected, but now I got to deal with these guys. I'm trying to go to bed. I'm tired. I just spent
Yeah,
3
like
weeks getting up here from
I didn't actually
Nashville.
want to hang. I didn't actually want to hang out with these guys.
I've been on the road for 3 weeks. My ass is sore from being in the saddle for that long. I was like, I want to go to bed.
Yeah, like I
Now
don't
I got to
actually
drink,
want to hang out with these people.
drink whiskey.
So like, but you know, we can get into it. It was just mayhem, and
Yeah.
I couldn't obviously can't imagine that happening now. But there's a little bit of thought that a lot of the coverage of this event was exaggerated by his political adversary. So somebody who was like, oh, they were out of control, trying to kind of denounce the support like the
Henry Clay, probably. John Quincy Adams. Didn't even show up to his inauguration. That's another thing we missed. There's only two former, up until this point, I'm not sure about after, but up until now, the only two presidents who weren't at the inauguration for the next incoming president were John Adams and his son, John Quincy Adams.
Well, you're missing a big one.
Too good for it.
You know who else didn't show up for the election or the inauguration? Trump didn't show up for Biden's. Don't forget that.
Oops.
I think there was maybe one other. But yeah, so I guess you're getting your news from pre-2020 sources, John.
That's right.
So yeah, that's like I just to think about if that happened now, it'd be insane. If they let Trump's biggest supporters, it would be mayhem.
The crowd continued to descend into a drunken mob, only dispersed. They only left the White House when bowls of liquor and punch were placed on the front lawn of the White House. So once they put the booze moved outside, people moved outside, and the place was trashed.
That's how you do it, though.
Yeah,
that's how you do it.
We got another sixer. There, got a keg out. We got a kegger outside. Go, yeah,
get on the lawn.
Party's out back.
Like they start flickering the lights.
I guess they like the candles.
I guess
blow it out to put it back on, blow it out, light it back on. Party's over, blow it out, light it back on.
Boy.
But apparently they still had time for a ball. So like this party was going on. I'm trying to kind of see here. It's like this mob was going on. I guess they got everyone out of the house, but then they still had an official inaugural ball for administration officials and Washington's high society. That was
Jackson didn't attend.
That he didn't attend, but it set the stage for.
I mean, you also have to think about Jackson's dealing with this. His wife had just died in December, so his wife died 4 months ago, and he's dealing with this. He's got to be miserable.
Blaming on probably half the people that might have been at the party. He'd be blaming for her death. Like he was a very vindictive kind of dude, I think.
Talk about a bad day at work.
But that set up the scandal, which some of our fans may have heard of, maybe not, called the Eaton Affair, or more maybe a little better known as the Petticoat Affair. It's kind of where this all kind of kicked off. And that was a scandal that almost broke down his entire administration. It was just crazy. And it all involved a lot of people in his cabinet's wives and a lot of women, the wives of his cabinet members just not liking this other woman. And the whole thing just almost took down his administration, which I feel like today you don't hear so much from the first ladies and especially the wives of cabinet members. I mean, imagine if Doug Emhoff, the husband of our current Vice President Kamala Harris, just went in there and just started causing all kinds of commotion.
Well, what happened in the Petticoat Affair, John? You didn't do a great job of explaining it there.
Well, here I can paint a scene for our fans. I got a little write up here, and since some of our fans like my voice acting,
did you write this?
I had some help.
What'd you use?
From a friend.
Do you use ChatGPT?
What do you think?
It's funny because do you ever hear that? Now, if fans remember from our review episode, your New Year's resolution was to not use ChatGPT, and you know how they say, and they say that you most New Year's resolutions are broken by the second Friday of the year. I guess you made it to the third. I guess you made it to the third Friday.
Sound good.
Good for
I'm
you.
in.
You beat it by a week.
Well, I got
Go
something
ahead.
here.
Go
So
ahead.
I have this in the voice of a 1930 newspaperman.
1930.
Okay. 1930s, like read all about it kind of New Yorker accent here. Let's see how this goes.
Decade too late, but all right, let's go. Give it a shot.
A century too late. The petticoat affair. See, it was a real humdinger back in Andrew Jackson's day, 1829 to be exact. Picture this. Jackson's White House turns into a powder keg over a dame named Peggy Eaton. She's the wife of Jackson's Secretary of War, John Eaton, and boy, does she cause a ruckus. Peggy's a firecracker, married once before, but tongues wag that her first husband kicked the bucket because of her cozying up to Eaton. The society dames in Washington, led by the wife of Jackson's Veep, John C. Calhoun, give her the cold shoulder, treating her like yesterday's newspaper. They figure she ain't respectable enough for their fancy tea parties. Now, Jackson, he's no fan of this kind of snubbing. Reminds him of how his own late wife, Rachel, got roasted by the gossips. So he goes all in to defend Peggy. He leans on his cabinet to make nice, but most of them won't play ball. Calhoun and his missus, they're at the center of the storm, and Jackson ain't pleased. This spat spirals out of control. It ain't just about Peggy. It's about loyalty, power, and who calls the shots in Jackson's gang. By 1831, the whole cabinet gets the boot except for one fella, Martin Van Buren, who's smart enough to side with Jackson. Van Buren ends up looking like a made man, paving his way to the presidency later. So what do we got? A scandal that ain't about booze or bank jobs, but about society's rules and how one dame lit a match under the White House. The petticoat affair, folks, a political drama dressed in lace and scandal. Ain't that something?
Ain't that something? That was pretty good. That was a pretty good summary. That's all that you really need to know. Basically, this Peggy Eaton was like she was a smart woman for her time.
She does seem very smart.
Well-learned.
Yeah.
She's like well-learned, paid attention to politics because she grew up in a boarding house that like a lot of politics would come in and out of. So she was very involved in politics and kind of knew a lot more than these other women of that time. And they kind of thought that was uncouth of her to be like, talk with the guys, talk about that. Yeah. But like the politicians really liked her. All these men like really liked her a lot. The women hated her. So it was all this nonsense. Sure. She married a guy from the Navy. This Peggy Eaton married a guy from the Navy, and then I think Jackson sent him to the Mediterranean.
The Secretary of War, John Eaton, who she would end up marrying,
sent her husband to the Mediterranean Sea for like duty, and he died there. And then shortly after he died, she married Eaton. Jackson really pushed for them to get married because he liked Peggy. Jackson liked Peggy too, and she married him like 9 months later, which on top of everything else that people didn't like about her, that was way too quick to remarry.
Yeah. And they think that the guy probably killed himself. There's like, well, did he commit suicide when he was away? Like, because he knew what was going on. But basically, it was like they're saying like it was Jackson's Secretary of War, John Eaton's way of basically getting him out of the picture so he can move in and they could be closer together. And that's kind of what ended up happening.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and then they just snubbed her, and then it was just this whole like two-sided thing going on. Rift in his cabinet, and Jackson's just like, I don't need this.
Yeah, really. I feel like there's a lot of Jackson's administration just like, just knock it off. I'm here for the common man. I want to get some sleep, and I don't need to hear this nonsense. I need you to be loyal to me, and that's it.
And then on top of everything else, like this high class hierarchy. I mean, what do you call it? Aristocracy or whatever. They sided with Calhoun and his wife because they wanted tariffs. It all goes back to tariffs. They wanted
who sided?
Calhoun wanted tariffs. Calhoun and Clay wanted tariffs.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't. He represented
he represented South Carolina because they were able to do that, but him and Clay were in bed together for tariffs.
Maybe during the War of 1812. I don't think he was. I really don't think he was. Anyway.
Okay.
I don't think he was. Clay, 100%. 100%. But basically, just remember, like this time period, like women, like the place of politics, like while she seemed like a cool chick, just like a cool chick that got on with the boys. But that was not what the 1820s was about. Like women took their role in society as like the ones that held the moral character of society. Like they were the platform for morality in society, and politics was seen as kind of an immoral realm of mudslinging, and it had like that's like why a lot of people said like why would we want to give women the right to vote and get down in the mud and grime of politics? Like we're supposed to be holding the bill higher level, and some women, especially into that society, took that very seriously. It's like it is our job as women to maintain a moral high ground. And when we have this woman come into the White House and kind of, acting like one of the boys, it just created a lot of friction. And people started kind of digging deep. But at the end of the day, like Jackson wanted his loyal crew. And, but yeah, there were certainly casualties to it, including John C. Calhoun and a bunch of other people in his cabinet. But then the story goes that Martin Van Buren was kind of exploiting this whole affair and exploiting all of this stuff as a way to kind of move in and kind of fill that vacuum left by everyone that left Jackson's cabinet. And then Martin Van Buren.
I just want to get in here. Calhoun began his political career as a nationalist modernizer and proponent of a strong federal government and protective tariffs. So
at the very beginning.
I'm not. Yeah, right. So, okay. Just want to say it because you make me. You were trying to paint me as an idiot.
I wasn't trying to.
You were.
Was not doing that. But anyway, yeah, Calhoun sided with his wife. His wife was probably really up him, like, no, we got to get this lady out of here. And then, just the whole thing collapsed. And
joke was on them at the end of the day. Van Buren resigned so that Jackson could overhaul his cabinet for his next election.
You mean Calhoun resigned?
No, Eaton and Van Buren resigned in 1831, and then when he was reelected in 1832, Van Buren made him his vice president.
Right.
But I think it was like, listen, we'll resign so you don't have to worry about firing us. So we'll resign so you can get everyone else out of here. They were like and
he was pissed off at that. Yeah. And that created the rift between him and Calhoun. And then that's when Calhoun resigned. And then, it was a way kind of for Van Buren to kind of.
It was a way for them to be like, we'll bow out so that you can get rid of everybody,
right?
Because he didn't want to. If he got rid of everyone while they were still in it, it would look bad. They were boys, so they didn't want to. They were them boys.
Yeah,
3 of them. Jackson, Eaton, and Van Buren were them boys, and everyone else hated them. Except apparently the only person that didn't get when he overhauled his cabinet, the postmaster general kept his job. Was the only one.
Kept a low profile, obviously.
He was like sweating that one out.
Yeah. So then, what would happen as a result? So that because Matt said we then you get the tariff abomination like 4 years later, and then Calhoun, after he left that vice presidency, he filled an empty Senate seat in South Carolina, and basically became like. He lost all possibility of ever becoming president. Like that, going into the election and during Jackson's time, it was thought that John C. Calhoun would be like the heir apparent for Andrew Jackson.
Clay boys.
The Henry Clay boys, because they both had that in common. I mean, the one thing they had in common is that Jackson and Calhoun did not like Clay. But then obviously this whole Eaton affair really kind of left a sour taste. And then, so then Calhoun left and basically would become for the rest of his life kind of a sectional leader. He would be kind of seen as like the face of the South, leading the fight against tariff and even some of the slavery stuff. And that's kind of where he would stay. Henry Clay would continue to try to run for office, run for president, and not win. But yeah, it's quite a story of different people, but you wonder, bringing that in today's world, you just imagine just today if like Trump brought in like his cabinet. He's got a new cabinet coming in, and just like one of the wives or husbands of that cabinet just like threw such a wrench in it that's what causes the whole thing to fall apart. Just seems baffled. Just seems so weird to me. Just that time. People held a certain, carried themselves a certain way. And if you didn't keep to that standard.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was wrong. Wrong.
About what?
Jackson was a proponent of the tariff of abominations.
Yeah.
Why? He sold his soul, dude.
No, because it was. I don't think he was so much. I think once it passed, though, he was like, now it's law of the land. We're going to enforce it. I'm the executive. My job as the executive is to enforce the law. And every state, we're in a union, every state has to pay their fair share. You can't have one state, in this example, South Carolina, just picking and choosing what not to follow.
I get that, but law. They're saying.
But he was more of a states' right guy, too. So that's a thing. Andrew Jackson was a bit of a flim-flammer. He was kind of like, he wasn't a kind of common man. I'll play a little bit. So that's kind of why I think he gets some comparisons with Trump, because it's kind of like loyalty, though, I think was like one of his biggest things. Like he ushered in the wave of like, are you loyal to me? Like the spoil system really started cranking up under Andrew Jackson, where if you help me, I'll help you. And that was usually in the form of a job. So our boy Charles Guiteau, he was asking for a job from James Garfield, because that's just how it was done for the, up to that point, 50 years.
It's crazy how much of a freaking role tariffs played in history.
I'm telling you, man, they're a big deal. Well, just think, it's not just about a tax. It's just like, because it's a case of the government picking winners and losers. It's just like a tariff. They always say it has to be done equally. That's what the Constitution says. You can have a revenue collecting tariff, but the burden has to be shared equally.
We've already gotten through this. It's fine. We've gotten through it. So that's what we got. Do you think we should be allowed to party in the White House like they did back then?
How would you? Yeah, I don't see why you can't have people from the general public in the White House to celebrate, but obviously it's going to come down to a ticketing system, unless it was like a lottery you could put in, like for just a lottery system.
I like that idea. You want to hear a funny tidbit that I learned while doing some research here?
Sure.
When the obviously there's very little security at the White House during this time, and I was just curious, like, when did the security around the White House kind of start? I found it pretty interesting that even though it was still open to the public, there was very little security at the White House until a drunk man threw rocks at John Tyler. And then John Tyler was the first one to create an auxiliary guard at the White House. That dude was a born loser.
Whose house we're going to be seeing soon?
Possibly if
soon.
They answer my phone call. So I thought that was funny. But so really, even though you think people should join it, it's your boys started the trend of not allowing it. So if you were able to go into the White House at Trump's inauguration, what would you do? What would be the first thing that you would do in the White House if you could go in?
I'd probably go to the kitchen.
The kitchen.
I'd be curious to see see a day in the life of like the cooking staff. Like feeding everyone. How many people would I have to like feed? The cook. Yeah. Like what would Trump, like what does Trump go in there and ask the chef, like, what does the president make you make him? Like what does a typical day look like? I know he likes Big Macs. Trump, that is. Or Biden, like what does he eat? Is it like oatmeal at 8:30 with a little cinnamon and a little honey drizzled over? Like what does he eat? What would you do?
Check out the bathrooms.
Would you try to go to the bathroom in one of them?
I would try to, sure, if I had it in me.
One or two?
Two.
Upper deck or lower deck?
That would be epic, dude. That would be epic.
I mean, you're kind of
I would
paying
look
for
at.
it yourself, though.
I would go and look at every bathroom and rank them. I would rank every single bathroom as far as privacy, comfort, amenities. Like the Lincoln bedroom is where the presidents sleep, right?
No, it's a guest suite. It's a guest suite in the southeast corner of the second floor of the White House. Lincoln's sitting room makes up the other part of the suite. The room is named for President Lincoln, who used the rooms for his office.
Oh, interesting. Well, I would like to see like where the bathroom of like you can't say master suite anymore. The primary suite, I guess, the primary bathroom. I would like to see that. Is it attached to the bedroom? Do they have like the shower and everything, and then do they have like a separate enclosed room for just the toilet? Like that's the I think that's the true sign of that you made it in life is if you have a bathroom where you have like the shower and everything, and then you have a separate little room that the door shuts for just the toilet. Just for that's double protection. My sister had. I'm very jealous. My sister has that in their house.
I know. You mean like
in their bedroom?
You mean the toilet's separated from the rest of the room?
Yeah, like you go into the overall bathroom, and it's all in there. But then like you go into a door, and it's just like a what is it? Maybe 6x6 room for just the toilet.
Yeah, I've been in those before. They're big overseas.
That's the definition of you made.
Not really. Okay. Well, there's
I know that you made it. I mean, that would be if I were to build a house. That's what I would have for sure.
I definitely know for sure in other countries, like just like middle class homes, you just have the toilet, and then you have to walk out of the toilet to like go wash your hands.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they have that's like a middle class thing. It's not necessarily a sign of wealth. It's just how we make our bathrooms here.
Do you have it?
I don't have it, but I've been in houses. I've lived in places that have. I've lived in places that have it.
Good for you. Brag much?
It's not a. You're making it sound like it's a.
You're being very naysay.
I'm sure at least one of the bathrooms has that in the White House, for sure.
You think they have like computer screens and TV screens, like for you to like entertain yourself?
I don't know. It looks so dated, though. Like, I'm looking at a picture of Obama walking in this Lincoln suite, and it's just like, I mean, maybe that's what they're going for. Just being transplanted.
I think they call it gauche.
Gauche.
Gauche, I think is the term.
Like, dude, you got like the custodial services of the White House. Like,
yeah, like as the toilet's ever been clogged. All of my stuff is based around bathroom talk. I feel like
which president's poop stunk the most?
Yes. I mean, I'm thinking like to your point, you really do get an idea of how people live by their food and like their like the chef and everything, but you really get to know how somebody lives by their bathroom habits. I think that's the number one thing that you need to know to get to know people.
But what about their habits in the bathroom? What do you mean? Do you wash
often,
your hands before and after, or just before
hand washing? What you use to clean yourself? Do you lift the seat? Do you put the seat back down?
Use bamboo toilet paper, regular toilet paper? Yeah, I got you. All those questions. Well, they say, how much a hammer the government, how much does it cost for the toilet paper in the White House? I'd like to see an itemized bill of like, okay, I'm looking at all these things. Like, well, how much is that costing a taxpayer?
Yeah, I guess that's why they don't let people in. That might be the real reason.
I mean, this is all very fancy, but you're living like an actual king here. We all know. I mean, we all think you're an elected king now, but the reality is you should be living a little more modestly.
Yes. That inauguration sounds crazy.
Wouldn't walk into the White House ghost.
There's a White House ghost.
It's the ghost of U.S. President Abraham Lincoln. Oh, I'd have a couple things to say to him.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Apparently, it's
totally wuss out, dude.
He's been haunting the White House since 1865.
You wouldn't say anything to him. You wouldn't have the guts. You wouldn't have the guts.
Could we speak to one another?
Yes. What would you say to him? There you go. Maybe that's what you would want to do.
The White House's most famous alleged apparition is that of Abe Lincoln. First person reported to have actually seen Lincoln's spirit was First Lady Grace Coolidge, who said she saw the ghost of Lincoln standing at a window in the Yellow Oval Room, staring out at the Potomac in 1927. Perhaps the most famous incident was in 1942 when Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands allegedly heard footsteps outside her White House bedroom and answered a knock on the door, only to see Lincoln in frock coat and top hat standing in front of her. She promptly fainted.
British Prime Minister. That might have been a dream.
Winston Churchill loved to retire late, take a long hot bath while drinking a scotch, and smoke a cigar. There is an account that on this occasion he climbed out of the bath and naked, but for his cigar, walked into the adjoining bedroom. He was startled to see Lincoln standing by the fireplace in the room, leaning on the mantel. Churchill, always quick on the uptake, simply took a cigar out of his mouth, tapped the ash off the end of his cigar, and said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." Lincoln smiled softly, as if laughing, and disappeared. So, apparently, the ghost of Abraham Lincoln saw Winston Churchill's wheelie. That's groundbreaking. Yes, me.
That's groundbreaking. So that's what you would want to search out. You would want to do a Ghost Hunters episode in the White House.
Yeah, I want to find that MFer. I want to talk to him.
I would pay every amount of money that I have to my name to see you just totally wuss out trying to talk to him. You could barely even talk to the people at Saratoga about your love for Tadeusz Kosciuszko. You totally wussed out there too. Oh, what do you like about him?
I would call on the ghost of Tadeusz Kosciuszko to have my back when talking with Abe Lincoln.
Yeah. All right, that's it for what we have today. So just sneak peek of things to come. I think we're going to we're getting around to the anniversary time. We might be running a little late here, but on the O.J. Simpson, the trial of O.J. Simpson. So we may have a guest appearance with some continuation of the saga of Orenthal James Simpson. I think John makes a good point. Perhaps do some talk of nuclear power. Be interesting. Maybe. I don't know. The other thing that we've been asked to do, so we have some movie reviews that we're talking about. Might do some state flag coverage, which I'm always a big fan to talk about. We could rank the state flags. We've done that before. That would be fun. A little bit hard to do with no visual. How do we do on time?
A little bit of a blowout, but that's okay. Stay warm while staying curious.
I think that's lame that they're moving the inauguration inside. There, I said it.
You think it should just be like, even if it's just the president?
Can't throw on a Canada Goose jacket, Trump. Trump can't throw a freaking Canada Goose jacket on and go out there.
Maybe he can. What about everybody else? But Biden, you're gonna put Biden out there? You're gonna put Biden out there in that weather?
Is he going to show up, you think? Has he said he is?
I think he will. I don't know. Did he say he's not?
I don't know. He didn't. All right, fans. John, you going to leave him with anything?
Like I just said, stay warm, but stay curious.
I got hairy legs.
Come on, man.
And we say bye-bye.